All right, we are here after Colorado preseason practice 17-ish.
Something like that. Yeah.
We're getting closer. We only have today and then 2 more media availability windows before the season opener. So it is getting to that point you can start to taste it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're down to single digits now. The game's in 9 days. And so, you can taste it a little bit. And I think, chatting with some other of our colleagues here before we started the media scrums, and it was like, we're just kind of like, all right, let's be done talking about it now. Let's just go see a football game. And that's every year. It's not a this team thing. It's just every year you get to that point. It's like, all right, it's been 8 months of talking about, what this next team is going to be like. Everybody has their opinion on what it's going to be like. That's great, whatever. They're polarizing. Let's just go see what they look like.
I love that sentiment. We're getting there. Yeah. We did get a good slate of interviews today. We talked to 3 coaches, starting with Damian Lewis. And this is a good situation to come into as first-year defensive line coach at this level, because you have 8 scholarship defensive linemen if you include BJ Green in that group. And so you've got a lot of experience. And I think that rotation, you go all the way 8 deep with this group. Whereas last year, I don't know if you could even feel confident about your second group on the defensive line.
Yeah, and I saw we talk about opinions, right? I saw somebody national throughout opinions say, I only feel good about 2 of the defensive linemen. Well, I disagree fully, because a lot of times you'll have maybe 8, 9 defensive linemen on the roster, but 4 or 5 of them are young kids that you're still developing. To your point, you've got 8 guys in there that are upperclassmen. I think there may be a sophomore or 2 in there, but they're upperclassmen, and so you feel these are guys that have played football, right? And they haven't played football at lower levels. These are guys that have now played FBS football, and Chidozie Nwankwo has been a 32-game starter at the FBS level. Anquan Barnes is maybe one of the least experienced, but he came from Alabama, where he's going against some pros. So you got you've got experienced guys in that lineup. I think when you watch practice film and things like that, it's like they got 8 deep. I mean, they can go 8 deep, and if they have to shorten it even to 6, that's a pretty good rotation.
I was talking with Vonta Bentley at Media Day, and he just said those guys are making my life so much easier because you have a lot of legit 300-pounders on the roster. Last year, Shane Cox was having to kind of play out of position a little bit, and so you have remade that room. And a lot of guys, I think, will step into that Shane Cox role of taking on a lot of blockers and maybe not getting big stats, but their impact on this football team will still be tremendous. And again, if Vonta Bentley does the things we expect him to this fall, then it's going to be because of those guys.
Yeah, and Chidozie Nwankwo is one of those guys. He's one of my favorite new players on this team to talk to, and he's so experienced. But he's one of those guys to me that's going to be an impactful player that may not have big stats. He's a guy that may have 30 tackles and maybe a couple of tackles for loss, but he's going to have impactful plays and make an impact on the run. So that's what he did at Houston. I see this as a defensive line where they can mix and match. I think Shane Cox, we've talked about it. I think he's going to be better because he's got those people around him. When he's lining up against or next to Chidozie or BJ Green, guys like that, Shane Cox now becomes better. And so I think collectively as a group, it's much better.
With linebacker, some interesting comments from Andre Hart talking about the fact that, yes, Vonta Bentley and Trevor Woods are the ones, but the fact that Nakai Hill-Green has come on, there's more competition there. He mentioned Jeremiah Brown as well, and that's a good story, Jeremiah Brown, because he's a playmaker out there, but he just has kind of switched between edge and linebacker, never really seemed to find a role. He looked good in the spring game.
He really did, and we asked Coach Prime about Jeremiah Brown in the spring. I think it might have been in the spring game press conference, and he talked about Jeremiah and saying he's didn't really know what he wanted to be, and now he's finally settled into that. Sounds like this offseason he really settled into that. Now he's had a full offseason of being an inside linebacker and is comfortable. And Andre Hart had really good things to say about him, and he said he's really got 4 guys right now that he feels comfortable putting in that game. And Nakai Hill-Green is one that I expected to be up there, right? He's a guy that played for Michigan. He was a starter at Charlotte. You expect him to come in here and be a guy that can play. And I asked him a little bit about can that be a little bit more rotation than we see? Remember a couple of years ago, it'd be like Nate Lamon and Rick.
And that was pretty much the entire defense was Nate Lamon.
But who was next to him? Was it Rick Gamboa or was that a different year? But
early on.
But it was like whoever the 2 were, they were going to play 600 snaps, right? Yep. And then that third linebacker might finish with 150 or whatever. I see this as being a very different situation where I don't know about you, but I would project Levante Bentley being that stable guy there, and maybe you mix and match some guys that are better on a third and down, for the third and long, somebody that's better on a third and short. Andre Hart mentioned you can do some of those things now.
And you even go beyond that. Johnny Cheney Jr. made a lot of plays in the SWAC last year, and Jalen Wester had one of the best run grades in the country at FAU. So now, again, kind of like the D-line, this is where my optimism for this football team comes in is, again, you're talking a third team that you feel pretty good about. That's much different than a year ago when, again, Bentley in and out of the lineup, Juju Mitchell suspended. You didn't have that solidified the way that this team does defensively this year going into it.
Yeah, and I see some of the criticisms of this team is their depth, but I think people are not really looking at this team if they're questioning the depth right now. Like on paper, at least, we'll see in games, but on paper, I like the depth a lot at defensive line, linebacker, secondary, really all across the defense. I like the depth.
And the last coach we talked to was Phil Lodeholt. I saw some criticism over the offensive line performance on Friday night, and it was understandable. But then you throw in the fact that they weren't running their offense, and it goes, okay, let's tap the brakes a little bit here and see what it looks like against North Dakota State. Yeah,
and I agree with that. And I was one that criticized and said, hey, I came away a little bit more concerned about the offensive line off of that, and in part because I know it was vanilla, but I thought they were getting beat in too many one-on-one situations. But it's something that I think a lot can happen in 10 days or however many days it was from then to North Dakota State, where you kind of shore some things up and solidify it. And let's be honest, they don't know who their five is going to be yet. They didn't have Khalil Benson that night, and that can make a little bit of a difference as well. And so Phil Lodeholt today even said, I'm still trying to work through that and figure out who that's going to be. And he feels good about, what do you say, 6, 7, 8 guys up there. He'd like to get it to 10, but he's also got to figure out who the 5 are going to be.
And he used the word rotation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come here to Folsom Field next Thursday and we see Kareem Harden or Khalil Benson, Tyler Johnson at right guard. I think left tackle Jordan Seaton, as long as he continues to show growth, is good there. Justin Mayers has solidified that left guard position. Sounds like Hank Zielinskis has done everything he needs to solidify that center job. And then it's the right side with Tyler Brown now working more at tackle that you could see some pieces moving through there.
Yeah, and I wonder if at some point Tyler's going to play guard as well, because that's sort of his more natural position. I like Tyler Brown, and I think he can be a really good player here. But at tackle, I like him a little less than guard, so I think that's where we could see some of that rotation is on that right side. And it'll be interesting to see, if it's Benson, if it's Kareem Harden, does Tyler Brown stick where he is? Philip Houston has gotten some run at at left tackle, but he can play tackle as well. And so there's some guys now that we could see some rotation.
All right, well, it's move-in day here in Colorado, which is appropriate with the noise over there. Coach Prime is going to have a press conference on Saturday. You won't be there because you have more important things to attend to.
Yeah, my daughter is heading off to college, so my wife and I are taking her to Utah State this weekend, and so it just happened that it falls on the press conference day, and I asked Sports Information, like, could you move it to Monday? They're like, nah, sorry. So I'm going to have to miss that one, but I am excited, and also we'll be sad on this weekend when I drop off my daughter. It's our first one leaving the house, so it's exciting for her, and she's a great kid, and but we're gonna be sad missing her. So it'll be fun though.
Yeah, that's one of those moments you can't miss as a father.
No. And I asked her, like, I said, do you want me there? If you don't care, then whatever. And she's like, yeah, I'd like you there. I'm like, then I'm there.
You're doing well as a father then, Brian, so congrats on that. And have a great trip out to Utah. We'll be back with more analysis next week.